Fantasy football is about choices. Will it be James's expertise
He's going to be the only guy on the field to get the ball. He's a 3-down workhorse to get the ball.
or Chris's insight?
But even if they trade him, I still don't think they're going to become a run-first team.
The choice is in your hands. We give you the option.
Welcome, everybody, to The Option, a fantasy football podcast. I'm Chris. I'm here with James. We are sans Nick. Another episode without Nick. I don't know about you, James, but I'm really starting to like it. Are you liking it?
You know what I like? There's no bell.
No bell. That's what I was going to say. There's nothing to interrupt our points. We're not arguing as much. We're feeling good.
So is it his fault? Is that the problem? Is that
I think so. He's he's not the glue, but he's like the acid.
the guy just getting us to go at each other.
He's
right?
just
All
a
right.
button pusher. Yeah. But today's episode, we're going to break down our mock draft that dropped Tuesday. It was a 12-team, half PPR, keeper draft. It was one QB. We started 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, a kicker, a team defense, and an all-around flex where you start a wide receiver, a running back, or a tight end. I picked James's spot. I picked the 103, the third spot for him to draft. And for me, he picked my favorite spot, which is the back end, the 12th spot. My first 2 picks were Eckler and Gibson. I like what I got at the back end. James, do you want to talk about your first 2 picks?
I ended up getting Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson in my 2. So I normally that's out of character for me. Normally I would go running back heavy, but I decided to change it up just because at that time I saw some more value in the wide receiver than I did in the running backs, and I was hoping that either Montgomery or Dobbins would fall back to me on the turn, which it did. And so I was able to add some extra value in the wide receiver there. So that was what I did. So my third pick was David Montgomery to give me my second running back. And when it went back to you, Chris, you took my heart away and stole my other wide receiver that I like.
Mr. CeeDee Lamb, compact disc Lamb. I took him in the third, considering that it is a keeper style league. The CeeDee Lamb should stick with me forever until he is done playing in the NFL. I know that would hurt you in this league. And I have Dak Prescott. So
if I know anything about you, nothing's forever, which means I can get CeeDee Lamb whenever I want. So I just got to pay the price.
This is true. I do like to trade. Is there you drafted a little? You caught me off guard with the Jefferson pick because I was ready for you to go triple RB here, but I totally understand the pick because the RBs that were left compared to the wide receivers that were still on the board, there was a big difference. I don't hate the Jefferson pick. Right after him, the next 2 wide receivers that went were Ridley and A.J. Brown. So you did get a running back on the turn. Mm-hmm. So you do have a good set. I like the pick that you got in I think it was the 6th, that Darrell Henderson, who's taken over as the Rams RB1.
Well, hold on, before you continue, why don't we give them our full team so they kind of have an idea, and then we'll go back. So on my team, the full team list, I got Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, David Montgomery, Robert Woods, Deontay Johnson, Darrell Henderson, Rojo Ronald Jones, Matt Stafford, Marquise Hollywood Brown, and Irv Smith. And on Chris, who'd you have?
I started off with Eckler and Gibson. Then I went with CeeDee Lamb, followed by Myles Gaskin. I took my first quarterback in the 5th round at Dak Prescott, followed by Cincinnati wide receiver Jamar Chase. I then took Deebo Samuel. My starting tight end is Tyler Higbee. I got a bench running back in Zach Moss and a bench wide receiver in Jalen Waddle.
Perfect. All right. So now back to your question there. The Darrell Henderson pick late. I mean, like I said, I saw it there. I mean, some people may not whoever's not following fantasy at this point, if you're drafting this early, may not even have known that Akers got hurt, and Henderson could be a steal there. If he turns out to be the lead back on this team, I mean, this could be a guy that, especially if he puts up something of numbers that Akers was supposed to put up or did last year. Like, I mean, to get that as my third running back could be dangerous for myself, of course. I mean, will it? That's the question. We don't know. And will they bring in somebody even though they're saying that they won't? That's another question. I've heard they've already opened lines to Jacksonville to see if they can pry James Robinson out of there from them as well. So who knows? We'll see what happens as the season goes. But right now, I thought that was a good value pick and could be a steal potentially later on.
Yeah, and then you followed it up with an insurance pick just in case the Rams do bring anyone in, and you picked Ronald Jones, which I don't hate at all. He did have a decent season in Tampa Bay last year. Leonard Fournette did kind of take the backfield away from him at the back end of the season, but I still think he's going to have a decent role in that Tampa Bay offense. Now, James, if you were to pick 4 keepers with a limit of 2 running backs, who are you keeping off your team?
So Dalvin Cook and Montgomery are for sure. I mean, that's a set. I am going to take Justin Jefferson because just like CeeDee Lamb, he's the guy that I think could be there forever. And then it would be a tough call for me. I would have to wait and see how the seasons go of Robert Woods and Deontay Johnson, just to see what happens end of season. I mean, Marquise Hollywood Brown could also be good. I'm hearing a lot of good things that they want to start throwing the ball more in Baltimore. So for all I know, with them bringing in the rookie Bateman, that could either open Marquise up more or be better for Bateman. I'm not sure exactly, but that's something that could change his scope as well. So I got some young other wide receivers there. I wouldn't keep a tight end, and I wouldn't keep a quarterback in this format. I wouldn't keep a defense. I wouldn't keep a kicker. This is a 1 QB league. You're only starting 1 QB. You're only starting 1 kicker. You're only starting 1 defense. I mean, the flex, you could start 2 kickers if you're 2 tight ends if you really wanted to. I also go against that unless your 2 tight ends are Kelsey and or Kittle or Waller. I mean, or Pitts. If it's not any of those 4, and you have both of them, I'm not starting 2 tight ends. So. But yeah, that's what I'm looking at. So I try to do 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and that's where I'd go. I mean, looking at your team, I could probably pretty well pick what you're going to do. It'd be Eckler, Gibson, Lamb, and then you have a decision to make in either. I mean, Dak Prescott's not a bad keep. I know that you wouldn't keep a QB either, but in this situation, if Chase and or Deebo Samuel or Waddle aren't amazing, that might be an option to go that way as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely a little wide receiver light. I would say with CeeDee Lamb, Chase, and Samuel. I took Chase a bit early, banking on that he breaks out this year and that the connection with Joe Burrow carries on into the NFL. Like you said, probably keeping Eckler, keeping Gibson, keeping my first 3 picks, and then it's anyone for that 4th spot. I mean, if that goes off for 7,000 yards like he was on pace for before he got hurt, then, I might have to consider keeping a guy like that puts out that output, right?
Yeah,
if he finishes as QB1, it's hard to let a guy go like that. That's as much of a plug and play quarterback that there is in the NFL right now and fantasy football. He definitely make it hard for me to not keep him, but I think I'd probably go Eckler, Gibson, Lamb, and Jamar Chase if I'm keeping anyone from this draft at this point.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, and Waddle can be just as good as Chase depending on how he does. So you have options there. I do agree. You went a little bit light, and with the way your team looks, I'll be honest. I think you'll be more of a second half start like team that's going to break out, because I think it's going to take some games for those rookies to really get in there. But I mean, the guys you chose are guys that could potentially go off. And if they do, like I would assume more to the second half of the season, I mean, your team could be middle of the pack and just shoot up at that point. And if you're on a hot streak come playoffs, you're a team I definitely don't want to see in the playoffs. Just looking at what you would have there. So, but I think there's potential in your team. I'm just looking at the other teams here to see. I mean, I'll be honest. I think my team should be a contender to make the playoffs as long as the
Yeah.
injury bug doesn't hit and whatnot. Like I said, yours it'll hinder on those receivers. If those receivers can do well, your team should be there. I mean, the Dak and the running backs you have is a great option, and CD's there. So as long as one of those wide receivers kind of hits, you should be in the playoffs for sure. Let's look at the board and see if there's any other teams that stick. First of all, let me ask you: were there any surprise picks that came across?
I think the Mahomes pick was a bit early for me in a one QB style draft.
Okay.
Considering if there is one QB that I would want to own, it is probably Patrick Mahomes. But like again, I got Dak in the fifth. Lamar Jackson went in the fifth. Herbert went in the fifth. Kyler Murray went in the fourth. Josh Allen went in the third. So, I mean, and the Michael Thomas pick was a bit of a surprise considering he's missing the first few weeks of the year. But other than that, I think it played out the way I thought it would. Maybe the only other pick I'd see would be a surprise is Kyle Pitts in the fourth.
Well, technically, he's the fourth tight end on the board. Where do you have Kyle Pitts ranked? I mean, from what my understanding is on your rankings, don't you have him somewhere there, 4 or 5?
I have him 5. I have Hawkinson 4. I have Pitts 5. I just don't know. I think it's a bit early to go tight end in that spot, considering the tight ends that are still on the board. It is a good team though. That team 4 is a good team. They got Taylor, Mahomes, Dobbins, Pitts, Mike Davis, OBJ, Cortland Sutton, Curtis Samuel, Justin Tucker, and the Buffalo Bills team defense. So they do have a solid starting squad. Definitely a contender. Is there a pick that you were surprised by, James?
I'm looking at team 1, just seeing how he structured his team.
He started off so well.
Yeah, it started off so good, and then I'm looking at what he did. I mean, Dallas Goedert and potential like 2 running backs there that are going to be in the committees, I guess you would say, and Etienne and Hunt. I mean, looking at the value after these guys, I think he could have got a better players there than what he took. I would. I'm just looking at that 3 right there. Just his team went from 3 great picks in McCaffrey, Ridley, and AJ Brown, and then you got Etienne, Hunt, and Goddard, and I'm just like, whoa, that just completely flipped that team. You know?
I mean, Darrell Henderson and Mike Davis or Darrell Henderson and Javonte Williams or something like that would have looked much better on that team over Etienne and Kareem Hunt.
Yeah. So I think that just kind of, threw me for a loop. I mean, it was good because I got better value when it came back to me.
It worked better for you.
Yeah, that was odd. And you're right. The Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes went round 2 and Josh Allen went round 3. Now, don't get me wrong. These are the number 1 and 2 quarterbacks that should be going 1 and 2. I think just in a 1 quarterback league, that's a little early for taking your quarterback. And the reason why we're saying this is because the difference between a quarterback in this league, if you really think about it in points, what's the most amount of points that Patrick Mahomes can put up in a week? What do you think, Chris? An average? 26?
Average? Yeah, I would say average 26.
Okay. Compared to, let's go with me. Did I take the last quarterback? No, I took the second last quarterback. So I took Stafford. If you're going to compare Mahomes to Stafford, what do you think what Stafford's average per week would be?
I have him right now at about 20 to 22 points average per week.
So let's take the bottom. Let's take the middle. We'll take 21. Okay. 26 to 21 is a 5-point difference. So I got him 6 rounds later for 5 points. That's the difference between those 2 guys. But then the guy that I took, which was Justin Jefferson, versus the wide receiver he took in the same round as I took Matt Stafford, Curtis Samuel, the difference in those points is huge. So, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, and that's what you're risking. And then on top of that, you lose the wide receiver, then you got whatever's coming around. So, I mean, I get it. I mean, in a keeper league, you're building and maybe, I mean, obviously Patrick Mahomes is now going to be his keeper and that's what he's going to have to do. And you're making that decision that basically you're keeping a QB at this point. Because if you're drafting him that high in a startup, That's just what's going to happen, right? But I also don't believe in keeping QBs in one QB leagues unless it is Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, maybe Dak if he goes off, Lamar Jackson, maybe Kyle Murray. Those are the five that I would consider. But I mean, my fourth keeper would have to be really bad for me to consider that. That's kind of the way I'm going because, again, like I just said, a 5-point difference from round one, round two to round seven is a big difference. So, yeah, so those are the ones that kind of surprised me. I wasn't too thrilled with that. I mean, yeah, the Michael Thomas was huge again, but you're gonna have that. You're gonna have guys in your league that are gonna forget people get hurt and draft injured players. I mean, at least the Akers one wasn't here, so Akers didn't go. Actually, let me ask you: would you draft Cam Akers in this league later on in the draft? And if you would, what round would you look at him for?
I don't think I would because I think the guys probably wouldn't end up keeping him anyways because the guys that I had drafted at the top of this draft I would probably keep over Cam Akers coming off an Achilles tear. So no, I don't think I would take the chance on him.
What if there was an IL spot or IR spot on the team? Would you take him just to stash him and then pick up a waiver spot later?
I still don't think I'd take him.
Just in case someone gets hurt on your own team kind of thing?
Yeah, I don't. If he was there after the draft on waivers, then yeah, I'd probably pick him up. But I'd be more worried about setting my team up for the now rather than worrying about picking him up for next year.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I might take if all these defenses go before it gets to me in round 16 and he's still there, I mean, I would maybe take a shot, put him in the IR, and then pick up a defense for week 1.
Yeah.
Just because there's nothing available. But let's talk about that. When would you take your first defense in this type of league? Seeing that the runs went, would that make you take them earlier or would you continue waiting like we did?
I think at this point I would wait, and like you said, I would stream them based on strength of opponent for my team defense. Same with kicker. I would just stream the kicker. The top defense for me that I'm targeting this year is the Washington football team defense. I think they're going to ball out. I think they're going to have a good year. Them in Denver. As well, surprisingly, Carolina, I think, is going to be one of those underrated defenses. I think they're going to get a lot of turnovers this season with the addition of J.C. Horn as a corner. They're going to be playing a lot of pass-first offenses in teams like New Orleans twice and Atlanta twice. So there's a lot of opportunity for them to get points for you, to get the value for you, where it could be one of those defenses that you end up taking at the back of your draft that you might be able to just set and forget.
That's true. Aside from the bye weeks, but yeah, that's not bad either. So yeah, I mean, I'm not a kicker defense guy. I just take what's there at the end and go with it, best available that I see and go there. I'll let the other guys take them. I mean, the cool thing about a keeper is that because you're keeping 4 players and you have all these draft picks you get to trade, 9 times out of 10, I'll end up having a few extra draft picks and none of those lower picks. So I'm taking my defense a little earlier than most people, unless I've
now. Is that because you
can I finish? Hold
on.
Seller?
Is that because you become a seller?
That's usually because I didn't win the championship. I sold some guys and I had to do that. Let me finish. In the event that I'm in the finals, I've usually sold my top picks and I get into the finals. So, but yeah, it'll all depend. But that's the benefit of one of these. And again, that's another reason why in these keeper leagues, I mean, you're trying to get as much value as you can, especially in the startup. And I mean, the defenses you're never keeping. The tight end you're probably never keeping unless it's one of the big 4, and a kicker you're definitely not keeping either. So. Take them later. That is not really going to hurt or harm you. And again, it's one of them is there. I mean, how many times, aside from 2 seasons ago when that New England defense basically won a season for someone because in the playoffs they died, but they were putting up 20-something points a week. I remember a few guys had New England defense that year, but that doesn't always happen. And especially on your rules, check your rules, because depending on how your rules are, some guys set it up so that defenses don't get you a lot of points and they're not going to hurt you as much. So that factors too. Just looking at the board here, I'm trying to think of what else is there that's
Is there someone that was picked either before or after you that you thought was going to come back that you felt
yeah,
you
you did
got
it to me
sniped on?
when you took Higby. I swear, I'm like this is perfect. He's gonna wait on Higby. I'll snake him here, and then you did it to me.
Yeah, I think we both got the same outlook for Higby this fantasy season. I think, right? I think we got him ranked in pretty much the same spot.
Well, I mean, because I was hoping to get Stafford, I was hoping to stack it, and I was
That's
like, oh, I could get Stafford and Higby coming around, and then all of a sudden you took him, and I'm like, you son of a gun! I was like, what the heck?
I could have let you get the Woods, Stafford, and Higby stack.
It would have been dangerous there, you know. So
Yeah.
that's another thing, guys. When you're drafting these teams, stacks are not a bad thing, and
No.
especially when you got a QB to stack with the wide receiver, you get double the points. And if you get them on a high scoring offense, I mean that's crazy. Like look at Tariq Hill and Patrick Mahomes. I mean, you had those two guys on your team last year. You're looking good. So definitely don't be afraid to stack. Now, don't go crazy and draft the whole offensive team, but definitely do that. Like, I think Chris, you had that issue where you were about to take two wide receivers from the same team, but you decided not to, right? When you wanted Boyd and Chase, I think it was.
Yeah, I was gonna take Boyd, but I ended up taking Samuel only because I had Jamar Chase. I didn't want the crowded field that is Cincinnati because they do have Higgins there as well. So I didn't want to jumble up my wide receivers too much. Um, yeah, I like the stack option as well. I like having the Dak and CD stack. Like you
I would
said,
too.
stacks are never stacks are never a bad thing. Um, Other than that, I mean, the draft went like I thought. If
Yeah.
there's one player on your team that you wish you went somewhere else, instead of like say you wish you didn't go Justin Jefferson, you wish you picked someone else. Is there someone that you would have swapped? Like for me, I kind of wish I didn't go Gaskin and I went and Prescott and I went double wide receiver. Now looking at how light my wide receiver core is, I mean I could have got Higgins and Cup or Higgins and Ayuk or I could have got Deontay Johnson there. I think no, I couldn't have got Deontay.
I took that away from you.
Yeah, he did. But I could have went with Lamb, Allen, and then on the back around, I could have went with another wide receiver, Jerry Judy or Tyler Lockett to help out. I think my team would have been more of a threat early on in the season if I went that role and picked my QB a bit later. But I don't hate my team. I think I think I'd have a contender at least in this league.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, I from what was there and what was available to me, I like what I took. If I had to change something, I mean, just looking at what went, I actually thinking about it, maybe instead of Montgomery taking CeeDee Lamb and having a Jefferson Lamb stack would have been pretty good there as well. But you know me and my running backs, that's the problem. That they're in my heart, and I always take running backs, and a lot of them, even like you said, like I said, the Jefferson at 2. I mean, you didn't see that coming, so
No, no.
yeah. So I'm starting to change my style up a little bit, seeing what it is. And the other thing you got to factor in is they added an extra game this season, and that's going to play a huge toll on these running backs. And I think the wide receivers are going to prosper because they're going to probably last longer than the running backs will in these games. So definitely another thing is, and they're not on the board. We obviously don't see it, but as you keep going, make sure you get your handcuffs. If you got a big enough bench, make sure you go and get your handcuffs for your starters because you don't want to be there on waiver wire trying to get your guy or using all your fab dollars to get the handcuff that you decided not to get in the draft, even though you had the opportunity because you decided to draft a kicker or something else instead. These are things that could change and any one of the guys can go down at any point in time, and whoever gets that other guy there, it could turn into a league winner. I mean, we've seen it happen so many times, and you don't want to be that guy. So, Chris, do you agree with Etienne over Robinson about 2 round difference? How close or far do you have those two guys?
Oh man, it's such a tricky backfield to predict. It's not one that I want too much stock in. I think both are going to have a role in that offense, so I have them ranked around the same spot right now. It's going to be interesting to see what they do in training camp and the news that comes out of training camp for the Jaguars. It's definitely a situation I'm watching, as I do own some of James Robinson, but uh, in a half PPR, I don't hate it because Travis Etienne is poised to be the pass catching back in that offense. And we all saw what he did in college with Trevor Lawrence, the now quarterback of that Jacksonville team. So um, it's tight for me. What do you think?
I mean, I've said it to you many times. You don't draft a guy in the first round for nothing. And as much as they're saying that, he's going to be the third down guy or pass catching back, I don't know. I mean, the other question mark is you got a college coach coming in. Is he going to try to run a college offense in the NFL and use all three running backs like he says he is? I mean, if that's going to happen, that kills all their value.
Yeah,
So
that's just his MO, right? But who knows what he's
yeah,
going to
so
do?
I'm a little skeptical as to what they're gonna do, let alone like so I mean James Robinson could be the guy that they say, yeah, he's our lead guy, but if they're gonna just use all three of them anyways, it doesn't matter who the lead guy is at that point.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I have to watch just like you're saying. I got to keep an eye on it. But I mean, for long term value, I think Etienne would be the guy. But I also don't know. Like, would I keep Etienne if that's the situation? What if they keep this for a couple seasons with Robinson and they go with that? Like again, an extra game. You want more running backs that are going to run the ball. You want these committees because you don't want people getting hurt. Could be the way of the league, and it devalues the running back position, which hurts me because I love the running back position. But I don't know, maybe the bell cow won't be there that much anymore.
Yeah, very, very few and far between. I mean, I think there's only really truly 4 to 5 bell cow backs in all definitions of the word bell cow running back.
Yeah,
So it's the way of the NFL future. It's becoming a more passing league as well. So
yeah.
maybe the zero running back strategy isn't a bad one if you can get some of these later round guys.
I'm thinking it's not exactly full zero running back, but I think like I don't
Like a
know, a
running back.
hybrid or something like
Yeah.
that. Might
Yeah.
be something the way to go. Just but yeah, like it's also tough though. Like look at this draft. 9 RBs went to start the first 9 rounds, and that makes you want to take RBs. Like you were forced to take them at 12 and 13 because they won't be there on the way back.
Yeah, I
So
mean, I would have got guys like Miles Sanders and Chris Carson, which isn't bad, but I much rather have Austin Eckler and Antonio
what
Gibson.
about Miles Sanders at running back 19? What do you think of that? Like, is that low for him? I mean, this guy was a top 5 running back or touted to be one. Like, running back 19 on this board is. Would you take him over any of the other running backs that are there?
I think I would take him over Chris Carson. I would take him over. I hate to say it, James, but I think I'd take him over Dave Montgomery.
Fair enough.
Um,
That was one of the ones I contemplated too. He was in my eyes,
yeah,
but I went Montgomery just because I'm hoping he pulls up on what he did last season.
yeah. There's a lot of that word. There's a lot of hope for Montgomery in the fantasy land
Yeah,
this season,
tell me
but
about it.
yeah, it's one of those. I gotta see it, man. I can't predict that backfield. I can't predict what he's gonna do. Yeah, I probably only over Chris Carson, Dave Montgomery, maybe DeAndre Swift. Um, Other than that, I don't think I'd take him over any of the guys that are on the board. Maybe Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but there's not much competition in that backfield, and a second year for him in that Bieniemy offense. Like I said, full offseason OTAs, a chance to really to get his nose in the book and be part of that offense. I think is only going to benefit him. Is there anyone that you would have over, or is there anyone that you would put over Sanders, or Sanders put over anyone on this list that went before him?
I mean, I'm in the same boat as you are. Carson, obviously, because again, I don't know. I mean, he should lead that backfield, but I mean, they're still got Penny there. They still got some other guy. I don't know. I don't know what they say they're going to run more, but I mean, we all know that doesn't always lead to what that happens, and he doesn't always stay healthy. So Dobbins is another one, just because is Dobbins the lead? Is it still Lamar's backfield and only he's going to run? I mean, and then you got Gus the Bus Tick kind of jumping in there too. So how much is he going to get? I'm hoping it's better because I have stock in him in a lot of places. But yeah, they're all in the same category. The only difference is Miles Sanders should be the lead dog. The problem with Philly is that they have 27 running backs over there every year.
Yeah.
Right. So you also don't know what they're doing there, right? And who to trust or who not to trust. So the Swift kind of scares me a bit too with what they're saying about, 1A, 1B with Williams there that came in, and the coaching staff there and how he ran his other team. So was it Anthony Lynn? I think it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's so many question marks. So the reason why I took Montgomery there, seeing all of that, is just because I thought, okay, Montgomery should have the lead back role. They're saying he's going to get about 20 to 22 touches a game. If that happens, at least that's what he gets. He's only 23, 24, somewhere in that group. And I mean, he won me a championship last year. So I had to have a little bit of faith in a guy that helped me win a championship. So
hopefully
if Fields does start, which I'm hoping, in your words, I think it was by halftime of the first quarter. That
halftime of the first quarter, which could probably
I went a little earlier. Sorry.
I like it though.
So yeah, it'll be interesting. So, but yeah, so that's our board, gentlemen. I hope everyone listening and watching enjoyed this little breakdown we did. I hope it helps you guys for your fantasy and what you guys are looking for. Again, if you have any fantasy questions, if you have any comments on our draft board, let us know how Chris and I did. We're going to post these teams up so you can see them. Definitely drop us a comment, subscribe if you are liking our content, so that we can definitely make more for you. And we'll be back with a few more episodes next week. Have yourselves a good night.
Don't auto draft.
Definitely don't auto draft.
Do you agree with us? Disagree with us? Let us know with a comment below, or even reach out to us and DM us.